Welcome to Back to the Feature, where I watch the full movie so you don't have to. I'm your host, Dwayne, and today we're checking out the 1999 movie Lake Placid, starring Bill Pullman and Bridget Fonda, where a 30-foot crocodile terrorizes a lake. The movie opens in Maine, where Fish and Wildlife Officer Walt Lawson is scuba diving in Black Lake to tag beavers, while Sheriff Hank Keogh sits alone in the boat chomping a poor Twinkie to death. It's just another routine day for both men. Walt is checking out a beaver dam underwater while Hank destroys another Twinkie. It all goes sideways fast when something underwater attacks Walt and brings him violently to the surface before going back under. Walt pops back up next to the boat, screaming while Hank tries to pull him out of the water, not realizing something in the water is going to town on Walt's lower half. Hank finally pulls him into the boat and is horrified to see that Walt's a lot shorter now. With Walt dead, Hank looks out over the lake and sees nothing but calm waters. In New York, paleontologist Kelly Scott is having a miserable day at the American Museum of Natural History. Her boyfriend and boss Kevin not only dumps her for a coworker, but he then ships her off to Maine to inspect a strange tooth found at the attack site. Kelly flies out to Maine and immediately hates everything about it. Kelly meets Hank at the local hospital morgue to check out the tooth in question. The tooth Kelly examines suggests that it's reptilian and is not a fossil. It came from a live animal. She forces herself to look at the body next. It's rough, but she handles it and tells Hank she wants to see the lake next. Kelly and Hank stock up on supplies while Hank tells her there's only one old couple that lives on the lake. Then she meets Jack Wells, a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Officer who is there helping Hank with the investigation. Jack doesn't want her going out on the lake with them even though Hank told her she could. He explains it's too dangerous and then he makes the mistake of calling her ma'am. Yeah, she really doesn't like that. The group heads out on the lake and the first stop is to check in on the Bickermans that live on the lake. Dolores tells them her husband died 2 years ago, but Hank says they have no record of her husband's death. She tries to brush it off, but they start asking how he died. She tells them she killed him because he asked her to on one of his coherent days. She said she hit him on the head with a skillet and buried him out in the yard. When Hank gives her a doubtful look, she challenges him to go dig him up if he doesn't believe her. The trio head back out onto the lake to inspect the area where Walt was killed. Along the way, they spot something floating in the water and Hank reaches in and pulls out a severed moose head and drops it at Kelly's feet. She accuses Hank of throwing it at her and she slaps him. Hank shows great restraint and then Jack makes the mistake of trying to calm her down by calling her ma'am again. Back on land, they make camp and Kelly meets young Deputy Sharon, who she hopes will help her navigate being surrounded by the savage, horny men. It's as awkward as it sounds because Jack is standing right there and hears everything. A helicopter shows up to drop off Hector Sear, who's a rich mythology professor and crocodile enthusiast. Hector heard about the attack and is convinced they're dealing with a giant crocodile. He's used to getting what he wants, so he immediately starts barking orders. Hector wants to do some scouting on the water before it gets dark, so they head out in canoes of all things. Jack and Hector in one and Kelly and Hank in the other. Hector even brings along his fancy fish finder to help with the search. Just then, their canoe is suddenly flipped, dumping Kelly and Hank into the water. Kelly panics while Hank is mostly annoyed, and they're able to get out of the water without becoming an after-dinner snack. While searching near the shore, Deputy Sharon finds a severed human toe. Hector picks up the toe without hesitation, and without gloves, he looks at it and declares it as definitive proof that they have a crocodile. Then he hands the toe to Hank, who just stares at it. That night, Hector has pretty much turned camp into Party Central with dancing, music, and adult beverages. Everyone is having a great time until Scrooge Hank walks in, shuts it down, and sends everyone out. Later that night, Hank steps out to take a leak but finds Hector lurking in the woods, claiming that he's out setting a trap. Their arguing brings everyone out, and Kelly explains that Hector takes his crocodile thing very seriously because he thinks they're godly. The next day, it's back out on the water. This time, no canoes. This time, they have Deputy Burke driving a larger boat for them. Hector and Jack are going scuba diving to see if they can find this thing, while Kelly and Hank monitor things from the boat. They drop anchor, and in the drink they go. Once they're underwater, Kelly lowers a speaker device into the water. Under the surface, everything is going smoothly for Jack and Hector, not so much above the water. Everything is quiet, and then the anchor gets yanked really hard, throwing Kelly into the water again. The boat is being dragged away from Kelly, so Burke goes to cut the anchor line while Hank tries to start the boat. Kelly is wearing her life vest, so she's just bobbing in the water waiting for rescue. Whatever grabbed the anchor lets go and turns towards Kelly. Of course, Hank has trouble getting the motor started while Kelly is a sitting duck. He finally gets it going and they reach Kelly just as the croc is under her. They quickly pull her into the boat only to realize it was actually Jack coming up underneath her. They get him and his gear in the boat, leaving Hector as the only one left in the water. Hector surfaces and Jack tells Burke to raise the speaker equipment while he and Hank help Hector into the boat. Poor Burke should have been wearing a red shirt this whole time. He's pulling up the device. While everyone is busy, a giant crocodile jumps out of the water and bites Burke's head clean off. So yeah, he's dead. Back on land, everyone is traumatized even though none of them actually saw it happen. Hank and Hector once again fail to communicate and they end up arguing. While Jack and Kelly attempt to help, they're all interrupted by a massive grizzly bear who thinks he's still the apex predator in these parts. Just when the bear looks like it's the biggest thing in the movie, the giant crocodile explodes out of the water and drags it away. Everyone finally sees the monster clearly, and suddenly Hector's giant crocodile theory is no longer crazy. Despite what they witnessed, it's back to arguing between Hank and Hector, as Hector thinks it's a miracle of nature, while Hank wants to kill it with his big gun. Again, they agree to disagree, with Hank finally punching Hector in the face, knocking him on his ass. Jack, Kelly, Hank, and a deputy are walking the shoreline looking for crocodile tracks when Kelly stumbles onto a severed human head that looks a lot like Burke. Naturally, she freaks out and is ready to go back to her tent. Before they leave, Jack discovers old lady Dolores, who happens to live nearby, walking a blindfolded cow down to the water where the crocodile is patiently waiting like it's there to pick up its food order. They watch in horror as the croc quickly takes down the entire cow. They go to question her and Dolores casually reveals she has been feeding the crocodile for 6 years. When Hank inquires if she ever let her husband blindfolded down to the water, Betty White delivers the best line in the whole movie.
If I had a dick, this is where I'd tell you to suck it.
She admits that it did kill her husband a couple of years ago, but by mistake. Her husband was trying to save a horse from being eaten and got too close. Hector teams up with Deputy Sharon and takes the helicopter to a cove to search for the crocodile. He then dives into the water alone because apparently being a crocodile enthusiast means having a death wish. Poor Sharon is left alone on the helicopter to fend for herself. Hector comes face to face with the crocodile and nearly becomes lunch. He's able to distract it with an inflatable raft, giving himself just enough time to get in the helicopter. They take off, but not before the crocodile bites the pontoon. Sharon shoots at it and it lets them go. As they fly away, you know that croc was thinking, yeah, you better run. Back at camp, Jack and Hank ground him and he acts like it was no big deal, but we know he was shitting his pants when that croc was in his face. Jack calls in support from Florida wildlife officers who are better equipped for crocodile problems. Hector argues they should capture it alive, but Jack says it's impossible to trap something this large. Jack reluctantly agrees to Hector's plan, mostly because he has a solid strategy and because he's tired of arguing. They decide to take a cow from Dolores' bait by dangling it from the helicopter to lure the crocodile out. The team sets up near the lakeshore for the capture attempt. The plan is simple: bait the monster, tranquilize it, and hope nobody gets killed. Hector hangs the cow from the helicopter and dips it in the water like a tea bag. It's now dark and nothing has happened. Just when they're about to give up, Hector sees movement on the radar. Everyone scrambles into position and Hector slowly moves the cow towards the shore to lure him into range. The crocodile lunges at the cow just as Hector raises it out of reach. This allows the croc's soft underbelly to be exposed, giving Jack a clean shot with a tranquilizer dart to the creature's neck. The rope on the cow breaks, causing Hector to lose control, and he and the cow crash into the lake. The crocodile comes onto land and charges the team, turning their plan upside down. Kelly falls out of the truck and gets knocked into the water by its tail and has to swim towards the wrecked helicopter as the monster closes in on her. By some miracle, Kelly reaches the helicopter where she has Hector to keep her company. The crocodile tries to attack them but gets stuck inside the helicopter, giving the tranquilizer time to finally start working. With the crocodile down, it's back to debating whether to kill it or keep it alive. Kelly begs Jack not to kill it, but he grabs a rifle anyways and shoots the animal, but it turns out it was loaded with a tranquilizer because down deep, he's an old softy. Just when it seems like the nightmare is over, a second giant crocodile appears and almost pulls Hector into the water. Everyone is completely shocked that there were actually two big crocs this whole time. Hank reacts fast and blasts the second crocodile with a grenade launcher. It explodes in the water, proving that while science is nice and all, sometimes you need a grumpy sheriff to take care of business. And now we're back to just one crocodile. 1 week later, Dolores is back at the lake feeding breadcrumbs to a group of baby crocodiles. The movie ends with the captured crocodile strapped to a flatbed trailer being hauled down the road. And that was Lake Placid, a movie that gives you a giant crocodile, a sarcastic survival squad, and Betty White's potty mouth before most people even knew they needed it in their lives. Even with being a summer release, Lake Placid didn't make much of a splash at the box office. When I saw it opening weekend, I thought it was a fun movie. The cast was great, and my only complaint was that the body count could have been higher. Still a fun movie though. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, drop your favorite scene in the comments, and subscribe for more retro cinema each week. Thanks for taking time out of your day to watch, and I'll see you on the next Back to the Feature.